Get the body of your dreams. What you need to know. What you need to know about weight loss. Everybody wants to lose weight. This is one fact that is supported by the countless weight loss programs on the market, along with the numerous weight loss products, ranging from snack bars, powdered juices, shakes, and even slimming soaps and lotions. It really gets confusing nowadays to know which ones are for real and which ones are junk, especially when presented with all the information. You don't have to practice everything. It's not really essential that you know about all the available diets on the market. In fact, many of them have conflicting principles. For instance, one might say that you need to eat several small meals throughout the day. Another suggests that you should only eat one big meal for the day and starve yourself until you start another day. Confusing, isn't it? This proves that just because advertisements say so doesn't mean they are right. You should get to know which information is the real deal and which ones are not. So, here are the essential things you need to know about weight loss before you decide to undergo any kind of diet program. Losing weight is not instant. Although it would really be superb if you could lose weight instantly just by using a product, you have to face the reality that losing weight is not an instant process. Don't be fooled by diet programs and products that make 5-minute promises. Losing weight is never instant unless you're undergoing liposuction. You must understand that it is a process that takes time to be effective. There are no shortcuts here. Unless you impose real discipline in regard to eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle, you won't lose weight on a permanent basis. Weight loss involves activity. There are so many diet programs to enter, and each varies with their underlying principles. Watching what you eat is good. There is nothing wrong with that. However, you should keep in mind that food is not the only factor that you should consider when trying to lose weight. Another important factor is your body's activity. If you really want to shed some fat and make your diet effective, you should couple monitoring your food with the right exercise. Dieting will not work when you're living the life of a couch potato. Living a sedentary lifestyle does you no good at all. Starvation is not the answer. Going on a hunger strike will not answer fat problems. The popular belief that starving your body will make you lose weight is a common mistake. Although this principle may seem to make sense, it doesn't work. The human body has its own monitoring system, which sees that everything is in balance. If it senses starvation, it automatically takes this as a signal for stress. When under stress, the body does automatic actions, such as production of hormones to counteract this stress. In this case, it produces more cortisol, which is an important hormone that stimulates fat production. Additionally, your body retains more water. When it starts water retention, this adds to your body weight, since the human body is mainly composed of water. Metabolism varies. Metabolism is how fast or slow your body makes use of the food you eat and turns it into energy. You should understand that people do not have the same rate of metabolism. People have varied rates, and this can affect how susceptible a person is for gaining weight. Generally, people with slow metabolism are prone to gain weight easily. Those with a fast metabolism are likely those that can eat a lot, yet still do not get fat. This is one good reason why eating what your friend eats within the day wouldn't necessarily lead you to having the slim body that she has. You may have different metabolic rates, which make it okay for her to eat an entire pizza without worrying about getting fat, while you get to eat all veggies, yet still have a hard time trimming down. History of losing fat. The history of losing fat. Watching what you eat, counting calories, exercising, diet programs, weight loss pills, liposuction, slimming creams, and soaps, all of these seem to be a normal part of the present culture. However, Did it ever occur to you that this obsession of losing fat must somehow have had a beginning? Civilization with no diets. The history of losing fat is actually a very interesting and colorful one. Although you may think that the human race has been dieting since the beginning of time, this presumption is actually wrong. The truth is, losing fat didn't seem to be an issue once upon a time. In fact, back then, people didn't really think about their weight. This is probably due to some economic factors. For instance, back then, only the rich people were the ones who got fat. The majority of people were actually busy trying to survive and have at least one meal a day. Sin, dieting, and vegetarianism. Ironically, the first diets came from the traditional war against sin. Since gluttony was considered to be one of the 7 deadly sins, there were religious institutions that preached on eating healthy and the perils of sickness. The first known preacher of this principle was Sylvester Graham. He was ordained in 1826, and by 1830, he was preaching about the benefits of having a vegetarian diet. The first low-carb diet and diet book. During the 1850, a physician named Dr. Harvey in England had to treat a patient named William Banting regarding obesity. Harvey advised him to cut down the sugars and starches. In fact, he told him not to eat more than the minimum daily amount that was required. This came to be the very first low-carb diet. The plan worked so well that William Banting was able to write a book about the diet. The book was published in 1862 and was called Letter on Corpulence, addressed to the public. This book also came to be the very first diet book in history, Chewing Food the Right Way. During the end of the 19th century, William Gladstone, Britain's 4 times Prime Minister, had advised that food must be chewed 32 times before it is swallowed. The theory was based on the principle that it can lessen one's appetite, which would lead to weight loss. This simple advice was so influential that it led to the title of the great masticator, named as Horace Fletcher. However, he took it a step higher, as he advised that food should be chewed until it became liquid in the mouth. He also advised that all kinds of meat must be avoided along with tea, coffee, and alcohol. It was also him who spread the principle that people shouldn't eat until they felt hungry, and that people should have a happy disposition during meal times. Calories in the making. Wilbur Atwater, a chemist, was the one to discover the calorific value of food. However, it was only 2 decades after his discovery, 1918, that the concept went mainstream and left the academic world. A doctor from California, Lulu Hunt Peters, was the first to introduce the calorie counting diet. Since it was a scientific method of losing fat, people were enthusiastic about it, and it sold like pancakes. Food combinations. Then came the concept that how much you eat doesn't really matter at all. What mattered is your food choices and their combinations. It was William Hay who first introduced this concept. He also held on to the theory that sugars, proteins, and starches must be eaten separately in order to avoid adding extra pounds. More food, more diets, and more claims. As time passed, people were exposed to more kinds of food. Fast foods were also introduced, along with the comforts of living with high technology. Losing fat became more of a problem, and still more kinds of diets came into being. However, most of them are still based on the above diets, which are considered to be the first in the history of losing fat. Different types of calories. About the different types of calories. Calories, this word, has been used and abused for decades, yet many people still do not know what it really means. There is more to calories than just being a word that is linked to weight loss. Understanding calories. A calorie is a unit of measurement used to quantify energy obtained from food. When there is an excess of calories, They are not burned, but are stored by the body as fat. It is common to hear that there are different types of calories. However, what this notion really means is that there are different forms in which calories may be obtained. The main types of calories include carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. All of them burn up when used in the body and turn into heat energy or calories. Each kind varies in terms of chemical and physical properties. They can be found in various kinds of food, whether solely or in combination. Here are the essential things that you need to know about each calorie type. Getting to know the feared carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are probably the most common type of calorie. They contain 375 kilocalories/gram and are found in foods that are mainly rich in starch and sugar. Most of them can be taken from plant-based foods like vegetables, fruits, and grains. Legumes, such as lentils, beans, and peas, are also rich in carbs. On the other hand, dairy products would be the only foods that come from animals which have a lot of carb content. Generally, carbohydrates can still be classified into two subdivisions: simple and complex. Simple carbs are basically sugars, such as glucose and fructose, which come from fruits and a few vegetables. Another type would be lactose, which comes from milk. Last would be sucrose, which comes from cane sugar. Sugar that is for everyday use is pure sucrose. Many of the simple carbs that you eat are sugars mixed with processed foods such as cookies, sodas. Presently, these add-ons are the major reason why sugar accounts for 16% of total calories that are consumed by Americans. The complex types are chains of simple carbs, which primarily consist of starches along with fiber, which can be found in all foods that come from plants. However, plants store carbohydrates in the form of starch. Foods that have high complex carbs would include grains and products like bread and pasta. Additionally, potatoes, beans, corn, and other vegetables are also high in complex carbs. Overshadowed proteins. Since carbohydrates seem to be the most popular type of calorie, proteins, on the other hand, seem to be the most overshadowed in comparison with the fame of fats and carbs. However, it is also an important kind of calorie that you need to develop body muscle. Proteins have 4 kilocalories/gram. The majority of this kind of calorie could not be naturally produced by the human body and must originate from dietary sources. The main sources of protein include eggs, nuts, meats, legumes, grains, dairy products, milk, and cheese. According to recent studies, men between the ages of 19 to 70 should consume 56 g of protein every day in order to avoid deficiency. On the other hand, women within the same age range should get at least 46 g/day. People who aim for building up their muscles usually have a lot of protein in their diet. Unwanted fats. Fats, as the name suggests, would probably be the most unwanted kind of calorie by many. However, it still plays an important role in the normal function of the body. For instance, the body cannot absorb vitamins A, E, D, and K if not for it. Also, they are an important source of fatty acids. They play an important role in the maintenance of healthy hair and skin. Protection is another function, since they protect various organs from shock. They are also insulators. This is very important for people that live in colder climates. Fats can be obtained both from animals and plants. Some animal fats include lard, butter, and fish oil, while plant fats include soya beans, peanuts, sunflower seeds, olives, coconuts, sesames, and vegetable oils. How many calories do you need? Probably the most common question asked by people who are trying to monitor their weight is how many calories they really need on a daily basis. It is true that you can encounter various calorie diets such as the 2-0-0-0 cal diet. There is also the 2 500 cal diet, and many other more. However, the question still remains, what is the right amount for you? Prerequisites in determining your calorie need. In order to understand how much you need, you should first understand the principle of basal metabolic rate, BMR. This is an important factor in determining the amount of calories that your body needs. What is basal metabolic rate? Your basal metabolic rate, or BMR, refers to the amount of calories that your body burns even while resting. Basically, the human body requires some calories in order to do vital body functions such as breathing, pumping of blood, and maintaining body temperature. The BMR represents the minimum amount of calories that you need to survive in a state where you are not engaging into any kind of activity. Literally, it represents the measure of calories you need just to dwell in bed and sleep throughout the day. The higher your BMR, the more calories you'll burn without having to engage in any kind of physical activity. The rate of one person can vary greatly with another. A person's BMR is somewhat grounded in genetics. Generally, men have a higher metabolic rate compared to women. This is because they are predisposed to naturally having greater muscle mass and at the same time, lower body fat percentage. Hormones and BMR. Basal metabolic rate is sometimes also affected by hormones. For instance, thyroxine, which is created in the thyroid gland, is one very vital factor in BMR. If your body does not produce a sufficient amount of thyroxine, your rate will slow down. On the other hand, if your body produces too much thyroxine, your metabolic rate could increase even up to 100% of your normal rate. Other factors to consider. Additionally, other than gender and genetic factors, there are people who simply have naturally slower metabolisms, while others simply have naturally higher metabolic rates. The rates can also change significantly in relation to your age and level of activity that you do every day. In general, the leaner body mass you have, the higher basal metabolic rate is. Conversely, the higher your body fat percentage, the lower would your basal metabolic rate would be in relation to calorie requirement. As you can see, the metabolic rate of each person differs. Hence, so does every individual daily calorie requirement. Generally, if your metabolic rate is higher, you'd need to have more calorie intake. On the other hand, if you have a pretty slow metabolism, this means your body only needs small amount of calories for vital purposes. Hence, your daily calorie needs would be less. Estimating your calorie needs. Since there are a lot of factors to consider when determining your calorie needs, it would take extensive research, monitoring, and testing before a person could really know their exact daily calorie requirement. However, there are still methods that you can do in order to estimate how much your body really needs. Here's one convenient and quick way for you to estimate your calorie needs. What you need to do is simply multiply your current weight by 15 in order to have the number of calories that you'd need every day just to maintain your current weight. If you presently weigh 140 pounds and you're very much happy with your present weight, you'll need 15x 140, approximately 2,100 calories every day just to maintain that weight. However, you should understand that this number is quite a general starting point, mainly because a lot of factors are not yet considered, such as whether you are active or sedentary, male or female, young or older. Take note that it's only an estimate. You should also keep in mind that that computation gives you the number for maintaining your weight. Losing weight would be another story. If you're aiming to shed some fat, multiply your current weight by 10. For instance, if you weigh 130 pounds and you want to weigh less, you would have to limit your calorie intake to 10x 130, 1,300 calories per day. Exercise and fat loss. Exercise and fat loss. If you'd be asking people what would be the best way to lose fat, you'd probably get the answer, go exercise. However, although you may think that it is a cliché for an answer, it still never loses its magic and effectiveness. On the other hand, just like diets, there are a lot of misconceptions regarding exercise and fat loss. So, as a guide, here are some of the essential things that you should know about the reality of how you can lose fat while exercising. You can lose more fat with high-intensity exercise. One piece of common knowledge is that you can lose more fat when you undergo high-intensity exercise. However, you should be able to do enough of the exercise. If someone tells you that going for a 20-minute high-intensity training on an interval circuit or the stationary bike burns more fat compared to treadmill jogging for 40 minutes, then you're not getting the complete story. It requires hard work to undergo this kind of training, and you would have to do it sufficiently for the results to be significant. Sadly, not all people are up for the challenge of undergoing high-intensity, interval kinds of exercise regularly. Hence, you shouldn't believe advertisements that say 15 minutes a day for a great body. More than likely, it's just a publicity stunt. Burning fat means losing weight. Another belief is that losing fat means losing weight. This is true, however. You do not really need to go directly to fat burning. First off, you should consider how your body processes energy storage. Fat isn't a permanent fixture of cells, or it would come and go according to your body's fuel requirements. When glucose in your blood is low, which happens during early mornings, fat would be your body's main fuel. However, after you get some food into your system, the amount of glucose in your blood would rise. This leads to insulin storing fat and glucose in cells. Consequently, your body also starts burning blood glucose. When your glucose level in your blood gets low again, fat from fat cells are retrieved to be used as fuel. This is what's called fat burning. After burning a lot of glucose, your body fat would get its turn to be burnt up since your blood glucose would be low. Hence, in a way, you really do not have to make fat burning your problem, but instead focus on food fuel burning along with energy balance. You can lose more fat with low-intensity cardio exercises. This assumption is true. However, there is more to it than just that. This is actually the same as with high-intensity training and losing fat. You should be able to do just enough of it before you can shed off some fat. Generally, low-intensity exercises that fall into the zone in which you could comfortably talk while exercising is actually where fat could get burned better and be used as body fuel. High-intensity exercises like weight training or interval training would use more glucose fuel coming from carbohydrates. However, some fat still gets burned during higher intensities. Hence, if you exercise that hard long enough, you might be able to burn more, or just the same amount of fat during higher intensity compared to less or equal work at lower intensities. This afterburn could also contribute to an increase in your metabolism rate after undergoing high-intensity workouts. Ultimately, your body doesn't really care what fuel you're burning. Hence, you'd get the same results. What you intake in excess of what you'll be expending would be stored as fat, even if there's a significant metabolic difference among carbohydrate, fat, and protein. Lose more fat with weight training, just like other beliefs. This is true if you do it regularly and with a high level of duration. It's really not recommended for you to do just a few heavy lifts, coupled with a couple of minutes break in between. Then expect that your body has already used tons of energy and is able to burn a huge amount of fat. Believe it or not, 1 hour of vigorous walking can burn 300 calories. Just the same, 1 hour of walking around the weight room chatting drinking, and completing 10 moderate intensity exercises would only burn a maximum of 300 calories. How to trick your metabolism. How to trick your metabolism by varying calories. Another popular kind of diet that has been hitting the crowds is calorie shifting. This diet plan is well known for its aim of tricking one's metabolism. Basically, it tries to avoid the plateau, which is common among a majority of diet plans on the market. The frustrating plateau. If you've been dieting, tried different kinds of diets, then you are probably familiar with hitting the dismaying plateau, which is also called the wall at times. This is basically the strange phenomenon which occurs when someone has successfully dieted and brings weight loss to an instant halt. Hence, no matter how hard you try to continue losing weight, nothing happens. This so-called plateau occurs most of the time during the 3rd or 4th week after you've started dieting, and seems to be a persistently reoccurring factor in that period of your diet onward. It's a reflex. However, what most people do not know is that these frustrating periods during dieting are actually their body's natural defense mechanism. This is how it works. When your routine of taking in food changes, your body instinctively knows what you're up to. In a frantic attempt to avoid starvation, your body gets into a protective attitude against this change. In turn, it tries to slow down your metabolism to prevent losing further weight. Frustration on its way. Other than trimming the total sum of weight that you want to lose, dieters start to believe that they are simply unable to lose weight. This is where you start getting frustrated. This also leads to the point where people start giving up. The trick: calorie-shifting diets are the answer to this problem. It tries to eliminate the occurrence of this plateau. By changing the number of calories you eat every day, the diet effectively attempts to trick your metabolism. In doing so, it makes your body believe that a steady or slow weight loss or diet is actually occurring. Your body believes this trick, and it doesn't get into that protective mode. Once you get past this point, your body's metabolism does not slow down. Consequently, it wouldn't prevent you from further losing weight. Thus, you get to continue weight loss and get the most out of your current diet. How to execute the trick? There are various ways to integrate this kind of dietary plan into your everyday routine. Thanks to its versatility, it's a diet that is relatively easy for roughly anyone to integrate into their present lifestyle, regardless of what kind of lifestyle you have. There are a lot of different calorie-shifting diets out there that you can follow. Here are some of the most popular methods. The 14-day method. One popular diet is the 14-day method. Here, you'll be doing the diet for 14 days. Within those days, 11 days would be allotted to following your scheduled diet plan, while the next 3 days would let you freely eat whatever kind of food that you want. The entire diet itself also rotates the various types of foods that you eat throughout the day, which also helps in tricking your metabolism. The 3 cheat days in the program not only prevent your body from making a defense mechanism, but also prevents you from being frustrated with having a strict eating regimen and falling off the routine. You could continue doing this 14-day plan as long as you feel that it is necessary for you to get rid of excess weight. The 2-day method. Another popular method is the 2-day diet plan. This includes having an up day and a down day. The whole program is based on a 2-day schedule. The up day would be the day where you can eat regularly, while the down day would be the day in which you would limit your calorie intake by 35% less than your normal consumption. You simply continue the pattern until you are able to get your target weight. 1 pound of fat. How many calories equal 1 pound of fat? It is common knowledge that losing and gaining fat has something to do with the amount of calories that your body intakes. However, what most people tend to forget is how many calories really equals 1 pound. Dieters should understand that losing weight really takes time and is definitely a process. So how much is it? In reality, 1 pound of fat is equivalent to 453.6 grams, while 1 gram of fat would contain 9 calories. Thus, 1 fat pound would contain 4,082 calories. This would come from the equation 9x 453. 6 equals 4,082. 4. This is the approximate amount of calories that you gain every time your body consumes a pound of fat. However, when talking about getting rid of 1 lb of body fat, you must get your body to burn 3,500 calories. Obviously, 3,500 calories is definitely not equal to 4,082 calories, right? What's with the difference? So, what's with this big difference? Actually, the reason is that fat cells in your body actually contain other materials, like water and protein. Hence, they're not really made up of pure fat, unlike what you consume. In consequence, when you lose 1 pound of body fat, you really burn only about 3,500 calories and not 4,082 calories. Gaining or losing weight, if you want to gain weight, you would have to add 3,500 calories to your diet so that you can gain 1 pound of fat. On the other hand, you would also have to take off 3,500 calories so that you can also get rid of 1 pound of your weight. What's the implication? As you can see, this simply answers the question as to why some diet programs are impossible to succeed. How come? Take note that the needed average calorie intake of a person in a day to supply vital functions and maintain their weight would usually fall into the 2,000 calorie or 2,500 calorie diet. Obviously, this is far from 3,500 calories. Hence, if you want to lose 1 pound in a day, you would have to go to the extent of not getting any kind of calorie intake, plus burning another 1,000 or 1,500 calories. This basically means torture to your body. Also, it would be difficult to execute a plan like this, since your body is wise enough to detect what is happening. Hence, there is no such thing as instant dieting or instant weight loss. Do not be victimized by those countless advertisements of weight loss products that say you can get an instant 1 pound off your scale as soon as you use their product for just a few minutes or an hour. Promises like that are definitely impossible to achieve. It would take burning more than your daily calorie need just to get that pound off in a day. Taking it slow, nevertheless, it is still possible for you to get rid of that pound. However, it will take you some time, and you have to undergo a process. You should understand that there are no shortcuts with losing weight. Sad but true. It takes a lot more time for you to drop pounds compared to what it takes to gain them. A majority of dieters tend to feel that they are not getting any progress, especially when they come into the phase where slow rates of weight loss occurs, such as when they get stranded on the infamous weight loss plateau, achieving your way to victory. If you are really determined to lose weight, you can still take advantage of this information. What you'll have to do is set a realistic goal and create a diet plan that you think you have the guts to stick to until the end. For example, you want to lose 1 pound in a week. This is something more achievable than losing a pound in a day. Hence, divide 3,500 calories by 7. There are 7 days in a week, and you'll get 500. Thus, you would have to cut 500 calories from your daily diet. So, if you're eating a 2,500 calorie diet, you would have to cut down to a 2,000 diet so that you can lose 1 lb in 7 days. Alternative strategies when dieting. As we have now seen, with the extensive and colorful history of dieting, It is undeniable that there have been countless weight loss strategies that have surfaced through time. However, not all of them have acquired the fame and fortune that popular diet programs such as the After 6 diet, South Beach diet, and Atkins diet have achieved. Nevertheless, it would still be interesting to know some of the less popular dieting methods. Hypnosis for weight loss. This is probably one of the last methods of weight loss that would cross your mind. But yes, there are actually weight loss hypnosis therapies available. In this kind of program, you go to a hypnotherapist who can administer the proper procedure. You are brought into a state of mind in which you will be able to control your food cravings and suppress your appetite. Hence, you won't experience the pitfalls of overeating. This would then lead to weight loss. Subliminal messages. Just like hypnosis, subliminal messaging is also used for getting rid of fat. While subliminal messaging has been quite an issue for some time, there are still institutions that believe that the human mind is capable of getting subliminal messages that are embedded in various kinds of media. For instance, you can listen to an audio track or music that subliminally tells you to control your appetite and not eat fatty foods. You may also go for pictures. The messages that you want to get can also vary depending on your need. There are companies that actually render this kind of service. All you'd have to do is tell them what you want to achieve, and they can even embed a subliminal message to your favorite music. This is one good way of getting motivated so that you can easily exercise on a regular basis, thus leading to weight loss. Stomach stapling. If you do not mind extremes, one weight loss method would be stomach stapling. This entails a medical procedure known as vertical banded gastroplasty. Although it is a legal procedure that is used to manage obesity, the whole surgery itself is considered to be dangerous and is only used as a last resort. It is used primarily for those who are considered morbidly obese. The procedure involves staples along with a band. These would be used to make a small pouch in your stomach. At the bottom of this pouch, there is a 1 cm hole into which the contents of the pouch could flow into the rest of your stomach and continue to the rest of your digestive system. The aim of this procedure is to regulate your metabolic rate along with your calorie intake. Acupuncture. Another alternative method is acupuncture therapy. According to traditional Chinese medicine, people tend to have excess weight because of an imbalance within their system. This imbalance is generally caused by malfunctions of your spleen and liver. Hence, by acupuncture, certain pressure points on your body are targeted to return the normal function of your liver and spleen. The therapy would also target the well-being of your endocrine system, which can leave you with a happier disposition. Massage therapy and weight loss. Another alternative is massage therapy. Believers of this kind of method claim that getting a massage can actually help in losing weight due to various reasons. Since massage can enhance blood circulation, it is also thought that it can increase the metabolic rate. This increase in metabolism can tap the stock energy inside the body and lead to losing fat. It also improves the strength of your muscles, which makes them more fit when exercising. However, you should understand that getting a massage is only considered to be a support for weight loss and not really a main activity for you to shed some fat. Low-carb diets, obesity, and low-carb diets. If you have tried dieting, there is a good chance that the kind of diet you underwent was one of the countless low-carb diets available today. Although low-carb diets have existed for more than 30 years, the trend for this method of weight loss has only reached its zenith very recently. The answer to obesity. You may hear or see advertisements saying that this kind of diet is the answer to the growing obesity problem. This could be attributed to media hype and countless numbers of genuine success stories. Not to mention that, when you add a celebrity or two in the mix, you definitely get the right formula for a new fad. In no time, everybody jumps on the bandwagon. This turns out to be a popular low-carb diet. Is it really for you? This kind of diet requires the near eradication of one whole food group, which would be carbohydrates. Undergoing this ban could mean anything from a number of weeks of sternly restricted carbs under the South Beach diet all the way to zero carbs, as long as you live on Atkins. If you have a very sedentary kind of lifestyle and are gradually gaining weight, this kind of simplicity is very attractive when you first hear it. No counting calories, no measuring, no weigh-ins. All you'd have to do is simply not eat pasta, potatoes, bread, cookies, cereal. Or, if you're on Atkins, eat a majority of vegetables and fruits. However, the question is, could you sustain that? Moreover, should you? Yes, but with one condition. If you're obese and you've tried almost everything, yet nothing has really worked for you, a low-carb diet plan is definitely worth trying. However, it is important that you keep in mind that it is impossible for you to maintain weight loss by dieting alone. Not this season or the next. Exercising regularly is essential not just for you to control and maintain your weight, but also for your general good health too, especially for your heart health. Sooner or later, you have to increase your activity and make it an essential part of your life as well. A lot of doctors believe that when obesity is the problem, any kind of weight loss plan which works is still better than not being able to lose weight at all. The benefits. There are a lot of benefits in opting for this kind of diet. The best would be that you are able to initially lose weight. There are a lot of diets which make you eat odd foods, count up calories, and some even go to the extent of making you weigh what you'll be eating. These kinds of methods aren't just time-consuming, they can also be very expensive. The big difference: low-carb diets also don't limit you to one food group. This is a significant advantage, since a lot of fad diets usually limit you to only one or two food groups. This isn't good for the body, since it will leave your system unbalanced. This kind of diet is able to give you just the right amount of food variety, so that you are still be able to consume the essential nutrients that your body really needs. In fact, a lot of low-carb diets tend to promote the healthy kind of carbs. Additionally, the foods you'll be eating in this kind of diet aren't that hard to find and are not fancy. Here are some of the low-carb diet approved kinds of food: steak, eggs, fowl, meat, mozzarella, cheddar, salad vegetables, pumpkin, leeks, broccoli, sour cream, cabbage, okra, and all kinds of meat, except processed and cured ones. Exercise, advanced measures. Exercising is one of the most important activities that you should not forget to include in your daily life. However, sometimes it may seem that you still need to get a whole dose of motivation just to get yourself up and ready for simple stretching exercises. This is actually a major problem for most people. There are still those who take being physically fit to another level. Yes, people like these actually exist in real life, and no, they don't only appear in movies. These are people who undergo advanced measures of exercise, which require intense training, consistent practice, and never-ending diligence. These are actually exercises that are less popular to the public eye, and are done only by those who are really serious with keeping themselves fit. However, this doesn't really mean that you can't try such exercises. Nevertheless, you should first have what it takes before getting into such fitness programs. As a guide, Here are the essential things you have to know about the advanced measures of physical exercise. Going extreme with aerobic exercises. One category of extreme exercise would be aerobics. This type actually has innumerable forms. Generally, it is done with intensity in the moderate level throughout a fairly long period of duration. For instance, running at a moderate pace for a very long distance is considered to be an aerobic exercise. However, sprinting isn't. There are a lot of benefits that you can get from aerobic exercises. First off, it strengthens your respiratory muscles. This gives you better facilitation of the air transfer in and out of your lungs. It also strengthens and enlarges your cardiac muscles. This paves the way to the improvement of your heart pumping efficiency and also reduces its resting heart rate. Muscles in your body also get toned. You experience an improvement in your blood circulation and lowering of your blood pressure. Some psychological and emotional aspects are affected too, as it improves your mental health by reducing stress and lowers incidence of depression. Examples of aerobic exercise. A lot of activities fall into the category of aerobic workout. Some of them include running, cycling/biking, roller skating, swimming, playing basketball, cross-country skiing, jumping rope, dancing, and walking briskly. Additionally, you could get aerobic workout via stationary exercise machines like treadmills, cycles, rowing machines, and stair-steppers. Going a notch higher, there are also extreme forms of aerobic exercise, which can be found in the form of aerobic water exercise. This kind of activity also aims for the goal of strengthening lungs and oxygen intake. However, it is done via various activities in water. It lessens stress on your muscles, bones, and joints because of the exceptional buoyancy properties. Your body will also be completely supported by water when performing your exercise routines. This is usually done in swimming pools and can let you burn more calories due to the added resistance of water to your body. Anaerobic exercises for intense trainers. Another type of extreme exercise is anaerobic exercise. This kind is considered to be more intense than aerobic ones. It is the kind of exercise that is intense enough to elicit anaerobic metabolism in the body. This is used by athletes for non-endurance sports so that they can build up more power. It is also used by bodybuilders in order to bulk up and build muscle mass. However, muscles that are trained under this kind of exercise develop differently than aerobic exercise. They actually tend to have greater performance within a short duration for high-intensity activities that could last up to a maximum of 2 minutes. Examples of anaerobic exercise. There are two main types of anaerobic exercise: isotonics and isometrics. Basically, isotonics make use of your muscles in order to contract it against an object along with movement. One good isotonic example would be weightlifting or resistance training. Isotonics are great if you want to have tone, stronger muscles, and stronger bones. It also prevents injuries and shapes and condenses muscle for better aesthetics. On the other hand, isometric exercise would involve contracting your muscle against a resistance without any kind of movement. One good example is when you lift up an object, such as a dumbbell, then hold it in position. Hence, you're isolating a certain muscle. About thermogenesis, heat production, and fat loss. In the world of weight loss, there is an obvious link between fat loss and heat production. More often than not, you would find advertisements that encourage you to subject your body to heat so that you get rid of your fat easily. This is becoming a popular process of getting rid of fat, commonly known as thermogenesis. How does it work? Whenever you fry bacon or simply heat it in the microwave, you instantly see oil coming out of the food, even if you didn't add oil in the first place. As you can see, when subjected to heat, the fats in the bacon suddenly come out in the form of oil. This analogy is one good illustration of how thermogenesis works. It is actually the process in which your body generates energy or heat by increasing your metabolic rate to above normal levels. Once you attain a rise in your metabolic rate, this is what you call the thermogenic effect. However, some schools of thought also refer to it as the specific dynamic action, SDA, or thermogenic response. How can you get thermogenesis? You are able to attain thermogenesis via a number of methods, some of which include supplements, exercise, nutrition, and cold exposure. Nutrients and their thermogenic effect. Among the nutritional sources of thermogenesis, the different macronutrients also have different effects in regard to the thermogenic response. Whenever you consume food, you experience an increase in your metabolic rate. In fact, it goes way above your fasting level. As for protein, it is processed to be used as energy, which is in turn used for repair and growth of tissues. Conversely, carbohydrates and fat primarily function as fuel and are also used more efficiently by the body. Hence, fat and carbohydrates have lesser thermogenic effect compared to protein. Heat-creating supplements that have thermogenic functions usually have key ingredients such as ephedra, salicin, and caffeine. Generally, they boost your metabolic rate, which makes your body burn more calories at a faster rate. They also help curb your appetite. These agents are intended to counter your body's mechanisms for fat storage by making your body preserve a high metabolic rate. In consequence, it turns up your internal thermostat. Hence, you get to burn fat faster. However, with thousands of supplements that fall into this kind of category on the market today, it could be very confusing to pick the best. Nevertheless, most thermogenesis products have the same ingredients and may just differ with one or two special contents. Keep in mind that getting the best thermogenesis products would mean achieving all its effects minus the side effects, which include heart palpitations, jitteriness, or nervousness. On dosage and caution, it doesn't really mean that the higher the dosage of your heat-creating supplement, it will give you faster weight loss results. In fact, what happens is you do get the same effects, yet the side effects are increased. Moreover, there are also precautionary actions that you should keep in mind if you do undergo thermogenic supplements. First, you would not want to become dehydrated. Thus, you should drink more water. Another, you shouldn't skip meals. This is because you'll have low blood sugar when undergoing this kind of program. Lastly, don't take these supplements at night. Keep in mind that they have caffeine content, which could lead you to being up and awake all night long. Popular heat makers. One popular heat creator for the body is green tea. Drinking this kind of tea through the day could actually aid you in burning an extra 70-100 calories in a day via thermogenesis. Studies also show that egg epigallocatechin gallate, which is a chemical in this kind of tea, is responsible for its fat-burning properties. Additionally, some studies show cayenne peppers have chemical compounds that are able to increase the body's thermogenesis. Hence, just like green tea, it is able to heighten your metabolism. Some research also shows that it can decrease your appetite, which is similar to what thermogenic supplements do. Body fat and genetics. Body fat has been society's problem for the past couple of decades. Reasons why people tend to be obese, how they can lose weight along with the risk factors of being fat has been studied extensively. However, there are still issues that are not yet resolved, even by extensive research and even with the development of technology. The big issue. One popular issue is whether body fat and genetics are related. This question has been bugging people of all generations, but most especially today's present generation. This is probably due to the higher incidence of obesity and the easier access to information by the public. Taking sides, like with any other kind of issue, there are two sides of the story here. Of course, there's the school of thought that does support the claim that genetics have something to do with a person's predisposition of being fat. However, there is also the school of thought which does not believe that genetics has something to do with obesity. Back to basics, genetics is the study of DNA and how specific traits are inherited from parents to offspring. DNA is basically the blueprint that every individual has. This dictates what color and other characteristics of hair, eyes, skin, and a lot more body features you will develop as you grow up. Since genes/DNA dictates everything that a person will be, you can't really blame those who suspect that it also has something to do with being fat or not. What believers of this theory say? In the light of research, many factions lay claim to the discoverer of the fat gene. However, there is still no official substantiation for this claim, since most of these studies have actually found different genes that are more or less related not to being fat, but to having physical conditions that could be indirectly related to obesity. Most tests are also administered to mice rather than humans. For instance, one team of researchers in San Antonio were studying brain injuries. They were able to delete an important defensive protein from a laboratory mouse. They ended up having rodents that had short stature and consequently grew fat in adulthood. Additionally, another research team at Boston was able to find that creating a very small genetic change in DNA that they claim can be the cause of obese predisposition. The convicted gene, called INSIG2, has a vital role in producing fat. They also say that it makes an individual more prone to being overweight by merely changing its natural G condition to a C condition. These are just two of the many studies that implicate obesity's relation to a person's DNA makeup. However, you should understand that most of them are still in the process of further examination and study. What non-believers say, on the other hand, those who think that genetics is not related to being obese also have very good points that you can consider. Here are some of them. They believe that genes have evolved in a way to protect humans from starvation and not from an overabundance of food. It has only been within the last 100 years that being overweight became a problem and became evident in large groups of people. In fact, during ancient times, people who were obese were actually worshipped and admired since it was a sign that they had lots of food. Additionally, the lifestyle of the human race has drastically changed during this century. Sadly, the majority of the genes of people today may not be fit for having a modern lifestyle. And since lifestyle is the issue, being obese is partially blamed on the conveniences that people have today, such as computers, telecommuting, cars, elevators, remote controls, fast food, and the like. Lastly, it is said that the fastest increasing population of obese people would fall into the impoverished category. They basically reason that those who eat cheaper, less nutritious food also have slower metabolic rates. They believe that accounts for why they are more prone to being obese, and not really due to their genes. Supplements, can they help? Supplements and how they can help with fat loss. The advancement of technology has brought innovations in physical fitness and weight loss. We have established that various diets have existed since the 1800s. However, one of the most significant changes in the methods of losing weight nowadays, compared to those that existed a century ago, is the use of fat loss supplements. Supplements for all your dietary needs. There are numerous kinds of fat loss supplements available today. In fact, if you search the internet, you will see thousands of web pages selling and different kinds of supplements. This is also the case if you decide to visit any health nutrition store. For a first-timer, it can be confusing to select what supplement to buy, especially if you're not aware of the various kinds along with their effects on the human body. For starters, it is important to take note that all these supplements have the ability to help you lose fat. However, there are also supplements that can help you gain weight, if that is your problem. As for those that can make you lose weight, you should understand that they basically differ on the process of how they could help your body get rid of fat. As a guide, here are the general categories of weight loss supplements that have helped people lose fat over time. Carb and fat blockers. These types of supplements are a great help in losing pounds since they help you avoid gaining them in the first place. Most fat blockers contain chitosan, while carb blockers have phenylalanine as its main ingredient. These kinds of supplements block fats from meals by binding to the nutrient within your digestive tract. In fact, chitosan has the ability to absorb up to 7x its own weight. Overall, they can be helpful when you're on a diet, and especially in times when temptation to eat unhealthy food hits you big time. However, these do not give you the license to eat whatever food you want, whenever you want, and still expect that you can lose weight. They are only to be used occasionally, yet are very effective. Thermogenic supplements. These are probably the most effective and popular supplement available. These include a number of the most advanced supplements on the market, along with the priciest ones. Most of these contain stimulants like caffeine and are specifically made to increase your body's metabolism to burn more fat by increasing the amount of calories your body burns. However, stimulants increase energy. Thus, they can make you sleepless. They are also not advised for hypertensive patients, since such supplements could increase blood pressure. This is one reason why there are people who should not use thermogenics. Thyroid supplements. This kind of supplement is designed to heighten your body's natural thyroxine levels. Thyroxine, which is produced by the thyroid gland, is the hormone that regulates metabolism. If increased, it could boost your metabolism, results in a greater amount of calories burned. Taking this kind of supplement leads your diet and exercise to be more effective. In return, you achieve fat loss. Appetite suppressants. If you eat less food, you lose weight. However, being on a restrictive calorie diet could make this difficult. So, they made appetite suppressants, which make your diet easier to control. In this way, you can just eat your planned number of calories. No more excuses. Some appetite suppressants can also help manage your body's cravings for fatty or sugary foods. Basically, it can make your diet more comfortable. CLA increases muscle mass and decreases body fat. Use of this supplement can also manifest anti-catabolic actions, along with antioxidant properties. Extra benefits would be assisting the immune system. EPA, on the other hand, can give powerful thermogenic effects. They can increase fat burning, which makes the body burn stored body fat to be used for energy production. Weight loss and drugs. Although eating nutritious food and living a healthy lifestyle are the two main remedies for weight loss, there are cases in which these two are not enough. There are people who bring weight loss a step higher by using drugs to help them get rid of fat. Right or wrong, this is one reality that is currently being accepted by society as normal. Going for the fat loss pill. Drugs that are made to battle anti-obesity, also known as diet pills, aim to help people lose weight effectively and faster compared to other methods of losing weight. They are usually defined as pharmacological treatments. Most of the time, these kinds of pills are only suggested for people that are suffering with life-threatening problems with their weight. They are also available only for people that have a doctor's prescription. Generally, these fat loss agents work via suppressing your appetite, boosting your metabolism, or by working with your body's natural capability to absorb particular nutrients found in food. Why go for drugs? There are various reasons why people opt for these kinds of drugs. Some may be personal, while some may be due to a doctor's orders. For most, they turn to the help of anti-obesity drugs or diet pills when exercise and dieting seem to be unsuccessful in showing any noticeable or visible result. There are also instances when time is an important factor. There are people that resort to using these kinds of drugs when they are up against time. They also use this when they really want to see immediate results. However, there are still those that use weight loss drugs in agreement with the recommendation and advice of their doctors or trusted health professionals. What is available? There are a lot of weight loss drugs on the market. Some exist on the black market, while some can be bought legally in your normal drugstore. Those that can be bought in drugstores are usually the ones that gain fame and fortune. Examples of these popular diet pills and anti-obesity drugs include sibutramine, orlistat, Byetta, metformin, and Simlin. Sibutramine. This drug is sometimes advised by experts. Nevertheless, it isn't something that you should consider as a wonder drug. It can partially help you. Hence, you would still need to lessen your food intake to lose weight. It generally works by giving you the feeling that you're more full, even if the food that you just consumed is less than your normal amount of consumption. Thus, your appetite would be reduced and your satiety is enhanced. According to studies, taking this drug and coupling it with the right diet and exercise can let you achieve more weight loss compared to having exercise and weight-reducing diet alone. However, there's also a big chance that it won't work with you. One good reason is because some might think that you could relax with your diet and let the drug do all the work. Orlistat. This drug is popularly known as Xenical. It has the ability to interfere with your body's natural process of fat absorption. Hence, it could reduce and decrease the amount of fat that your body absorbs. Originally, orlistat could only be bought with a doctor's prescription. Nevertheless, as of 2007, over-the-counter sale has been approved. Metformin. This is a particular drug that is prescribed for people that have diabetes. However, due to its use for diabetes through the years, it was found that those with type 2 diabetes that have used metformin also experienced the drug's side effect of losing weight. Byetta. This is actually a byproduct of GLP-1, which is a hormone that is secreted in the intestine whenever it senses that there is food present within. Similar to metformin, it is currently available as medication for type 2 diabetes. You can get it in an intravenous form. It helps you lose weight by making you feel full and delaying gastric emptying. Simlin. This is a byproduct of amylin, which is a hormone secreted by your pancreas. Generally, this hormone is secreted as a reflex when eating. It is quite similar to Byetta. This drug also works by delaying your stomach's emptying. It also gives you a feeling of fullness. Liposuction. Losing fat through liposuction. Exercise, dieting, eating healthy foods, taking supplements and weight loss drugs are all weight loss methods. It may seem that, with the number of these methods, they would be enough to answer the ever-growing problem of obesity. However, there are still cases where all those mentioned above are still not enough. So what would probably be the last resort if you still don't lose fat, even if you religiously follow your weight loss program? Liposuction, of course. What is it? liposuction is a type of cosmetic surgery. Here, fat is removed from a number of areas in your body. These areas that are worked on usually include your midsection, butt, arms, and thighs, among others. If at all possible, this procedure is considered to be a last resort for removing fat deposits, which haven't reduced even through persistent exercise and dieting. This procedure is used to take away excess fat. It also has the ability to shape up various areas of the body. However, you should keep in mind that you can't solely rely on this procedure for weight loss. In fact, surgeons averagely remove less than 10 pounds of fat in the overall procedure. Development, getting rid of fat by liposuction, has dated from the mid-1920 up to the 1960. However, the procedure's appeal only had its spike during the early 1980. It was a French surgeon named Dr. Yves Gerard Elouz who introduced one method of liposuction which uses a cannula. These are tubes which are used for fluid extraction from the body. He also made use of high-powered suction. It became a success since the results were very favorable. Additionally, little amount of fatal incidences occurred. After a few decades, the procedure has experienced steady improvements in relation to the techniques being used. All of these innovations have resulted in liposuction procedures that have fewer risks involved. Additionally, there is less pain, less bleeding, and more fat is removed. Presently, this is the current most commonly done surgical procedure in the U.S. Can everyone undergo lipo? Although you may think that liposuction is a lifesaver from living a lifetime of obesity, it is not. This is because it isn't for everyone. There are requirements for you to be able to undergo this procedure. First off, you should be 18 years of age or above. You should also be in excellent physical condition. Lastly, you must have tried other weight loss methods, yet failed with them. People with certain conditions are also not allowed to get this surgery, such as those with diabetes, heart problems, and circulation problems. How does it work? Traditionally, liposuction is done by inserting a cannula or tube in an incision under your skin. This cannula has a vacuum appliance on the other end of it. The plastic surgeon pulls and pushes the tube through the body's fat layers under your skin. This causes fat cells to break down and be extracted. However, in today's trend, surgeons first inject a small volume of liquid in the area that would be treated before inserting the tube. This liquid has anesthetic effects. It also has epinephrine, which lessens the bleeding. Lastly, it contains a saline solution, which transforms the fat to be similar to normal body fluids. All in all, the liquid loosens the fat and minimizes complications and bruising. There are also some surgeons that use a different technique called tumescent liposuction. This is also known as swollen liposuction. It is somewhat similar to the basic method discussed above. However, this type entails a larger volume of liquid to be injected in the treated area. The larger amount of liquid gives the surgeon a larger surface area to remove fat. It also reduces bruising. Side effects and the aftermath. There are also side effects from liposuction. You may experience localized swelling, bruising, pain, minimal scarring, and numbness in the treated area. However, these side effects usually disappear in a few weeks from the operation. There are also risks that may make you change your mind from undergoing the procedure. These include allergic anesthetic reaction, infection, fluid imbalance, skin necrosis or death, damage to internal organs, fluid imbalance, and burns.